Yes, good afternoon. My name is Florence. I'm from Quintegral, Singapore, and I'll be your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us for this seminar on personal transition, how to embrace change, which is part of our Learning Forum series. Before we start, I would like to briefly run through some housekeeping rules. Please note that this seminar is being recorded for Quintegral's internal purposes. We would also appreciate it if your microphone can stay muted to prevent any background noise, unless it is time for any participation. However, we would like to invite you to turn on your videos for better engagement with Dr. Lim. And please be open in your sharing during the discussion time, but do create a safe space for everyone by observing confidentiality and do not judge others as well. With regards to the agenda for the program, we will start off with a brief introduction of Dr. Lim, after which we will start the seminar proper. Towards the end, we will have some short announcements and to seek your online feedback. Today's seminar is about change and how to deal with change. So Dr. Lim will share today on the 3 phases of the transition. And then he will discuss the different strategies to manage the different phases and the applications to our workplace and in our personal lives. Just for some background on Dr. Lim, he comes with more than 20 years of corporate experience in senior positions in the L&D in financial and manufacturing sectors. In those organizations, he was mainly responsible for designing and delivering leadership programs across Asia. Currently, he is an organizational consultant who has collaborated with several senior executives from the private sectors, mainly the financial, petrochemical, manufacturing sectors, and the public sectors as well, to further develop their leadership capabilities. His main areas of expertise are in the fields of human transition, the process that occur at the individual level in terms of major organizational changes. But he also trains on leadership development and coaching and teams, among others. So without further delay, I will now invite Dr. Lim to kick off the seminar. Let's welcome Dr. Lim, please. Dr. Lim, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Florence. So now I shall share my slide. So with that, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for spending time with us on this Wednesday afternoon for an 1-hour session on personal transitions, essentially how to embrace change. And I'd like to share with you some perspectives regarding the research and the practicalities as to how you lead change with your team, and of course, how you lead change with yourself. So again, first things first, please call me Peng Soon. You can call me Dr. Lim, it sounds good, but I'm not a real doctor, I can't give you an MC. Essentially what I did in 2002 was to enroll on a doctoral program with the George Washington University. And my area of investigation, as you heard from Florence, is that the human side of change, at the individual processes that occur when you restructure, when new processes or whatever it is. I finished my studies with them in 2006 and I got on my life. And I'm again very privileged to be part of this learning community this afternoon to share with you some ideas. Now, you notice that I got this wonderful picture which I took some years back. And I don't know whether you can identify where is this place, but you'll notice the golden dome. Let me just zoom in. Okay, right. So this is Jerusalem. So believe it or not, I was in the city of Ramallah, West Bank, Palestinian territories, to do a series of change management workshops for the Palestinian authorities under the auspices of the Masjid Foundation International. And I found that whether you're in Palestine or in Singapore, in Philippines, Malaysia, anywhere in the world, you go through the same challenges as you lead your team through the change, as you go through the change. So I'll be able to share with you some ideas today. Let me just briefly touch on the Zoom features, which you may be familiar with. but essentially, ideally, your screen should be in side-by-side mode, right? So you heard from Florence. Please unmute your microphone so you don't have any background noise. But if you can you just switch on your videos so we can see one another? We are trying to simulate a face-to-face environment as if we were in a classroom, right? And then what is helpful is to ensure they're in gallery mode and you choose side-by-side mode. So you can see the PowerPoint slide on the left and you can see the faces of all of us on the right. And of course, you can adjust the size of your PowerPoint slide by sliding it to the left or to the right. At the bottom of the screen, you can see the participants who are in this session. And if you wish, you can drop a chat. We'll be using this Annotate function essentially in this workshop. And to activate the Annotate function, you go to the top of your screen, choose the view options, you click on that, you see the Annotate function coming down, and this is the annotation bar. And essentially, we'll be using a text mode, and you choose format. The color should be blue, and the typeface font size should be around 18 point to 24 point, which we'll talk about later. So coming on to today's agenda, essentially, I'd like to share with you the difference between change and transition. Most of the time, we use the two terms interchangeably, but there's a difference. Then I'll share with you the research on the human side of change, which is essentially the three-phase transition framework, which means you go through it, I go through it, your team goes through it, the organization will go through it. And what can we do in this context? Then we'll go one level deeper to look at how to change at the personal level, at the individual process. And essentially, we'll use one approach called mindsets, based on the research by Carol Dweck, to see how you can better manage change. At the end of this session, we'll give you a time to reflect and see what you can do to apply this back in your workplace. And as there's time, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have throughout the session. So you notice that all this will be done in 1 hour, right? And this is a challenge that I face. So essentially, usually this is like a 2-day workshop. And what I'm trying to do now is to give you the key essence to look at the human side of change. How will we work together? You heard from Florence, let me repeat again, is about confidentiality. We'll be getting you into small groups to discuss certain things. And in your discussion, we respect confidentiality. So please do not post things regarding content of today's session on your social media, on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever it is. It's okay if you want to post my face, which is fine, but definitely not the content. So we respect confidentiality. It applies to you, it applies to me. Okay, all right. So this is to get us started, right? To set the context, to understand the situation and to see how we can apply it. So I'll be breaking you guys into your breakout rooms. There'll be about 5 people per breakout room, and there'll be about 10 minutes for you to get to know one another very quickly and to discuss 2 questions. So in your breakout room, answer 2 questions. Number 1, share with your group, what are some of the changes that you're involved in? What are you going through in the organization or even personally, right? Secondly, if those are the changes I'm involved in, what are the challenges I face? What are the issues I have to address? What are the problems I have to confront? And it can be as a team lead, how you lead your team through those change, and it can be also be at the personal level. So the time is about 10 minutes, and after which I'll bring you back to the main room and invite you to share some of the key points of your discussion. Okay, so welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I trust you had an interesting conversation. What I'd like to do now is this. Let me share my screen again. Can I invite you to go to Annotate, choose your text function, make sure the color is either dark blue or black, and the typeface is about 18 point. And can you just type the changes you're involved in for a start, right? So whoever is ready, can you just type in something, a short word or phrase will be fine. It will take about a minute for this, just to get a feel as to the changes that you're involved in. You can start now. So as you type your text, I can adjust it accordingly, right? So I see new roles, upskilling. Okay, interesting. Pivoting to new market industry, definitely. Restructuring, absolutely. And what I can do, let's see, hourly meetings. There you go, man. Impending move to newly formed group. Okay. Innovation. Okay. Okay, new role, definitely. If you're using draw mode, I can erase them. It's best if you can type in your text. However, if you're using your phone or your tablet, then you may not have that feature. Okay, well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I can see some interesting changes, new roles, upskilling, pivoting to new market, digital transformation, transfer to a new unit, innovation, additional work, optimization, new org, new role, rebranding, culture building, restructuring, hourly meetings. A lot is happening, right? I suspect that all of us are involved in essentially three major types of changes. Number one, there are some structural changes happening in the organization. We are restructuring the organization, we are downsizing the organization, we are flattening the organization as the case may be, or we are merging entities, or we are divesting. The second type of change you normally see are process changes. We are streamlining our processes. We are going more and more into digitalization. We are using more technology, right? So those are process changes. The third change that you normally see involves cultural change. Cultural change here is about changing behavior, right? Now, in the context of the pandemic, we can't meet face to face. Therefore, some behaviors have to change. How we solve problems, how we make decisions. So these are the three major types of changes. So thank you very much. Now, let me just erase this and go on to the next slide. So if those are the changes I'm involved in, what are my challenges? What are the issues I have to confront? What are the problems I have to solve? So again, let me invite you to take a minute or two and just jot down your thoughts. Okay, thank you very much. So let's see what have you got. Those are the changes I'm involved in. These are my challenges. Technical skills, streaming into the digital platform, budgetary challenges, time and space, preparing and dealing with the uncertainties, new policies, hourly meeting, low internet, work, balancing work and personal, work from home, definitely, how to communicate and work with a team to handle innovation, right? Prospective customers response, stakeholders influence, customer care, the learning curve, deciding, making that requires approval. You have training a new system, stakeholder issues, lack of cooperation, organizations, leadership team has various ideas, directions that can go about the pivot to new and to new markets and industries, right? Employees' fear of the unknown and need to reassuage that things will be okay, which we can't answer, right? You don't have the answers. Adapting to the new leadership style, new work assignment, skeletal workforce, right? Changing customer behavior. What else have we got here? Health issues and so forth. So if you look at most of the changes that you have itemized, all these mainly have to do with what? These are people issues, right? To look at customer care, to look at working with the skeletal workforce, to look at the learning curve, to look at the new leader style and so forth. So all these are people issues, right? And we just hate to deal with people issues. As a leader, I just want to get on with the change. All these people issues are very touchy-feely. I don't get it. Just suck it up and move on, right? But you know that if you don't address these people issues, it's going to bite back. It's going to come back to you, right? So these are our pain points. I know I need to restructure. I know I need to have the new processes, but I have to deal with all these emotional issues, these psychological issues. Well, the good news is that there is a rational process to address all these rational changes, right? And what is this rational process? Then we need to understand what is the difference between change and transition. So I thank you for those interesting thoughts. Let me, hang on a sec. I need to clear this. Okay. And then we can move on. All right. So let's look at change and transition. Why change? Why must we restructure? Why must we have new processes? Why must we pivot? Well, essentially, leadership is responding to the external driving forces of change. You have social forces, changing customer demands, changing customer demographics. You have technology, right? You have to embrace digitalization. You have economic forces, right? Competition, and you have political forces, government policies and regulations, plus COVID-19, right? That changed the whole ballgame. So all these are changes impacting us, and the leadership will have to restructure the organization. You have to have new processes. You have to have a new culture. So what is change? Well, according to William Bridges, it is an event which is situational and is external to us. Change is when something old stops and something new starts. That's it, right? Come 1st of June, we are introducing a newer process. Come 1st of June, we are no longer using Oracle, we are using SAP. That is a change. Come 1st of June, we are restructuring the organization. We are no longer in this department, you're in the new department. The change, however, will trigger a transition. And a transition is a gradual internal reorientation that happens to us as we adapt to change. Where am I? Who am I? What am I now? Right? So for you and your team to embrace the change, you need to go through the transition, which essentially begins with an ending. Something must end for you. Then, if you are able to manage the ending, you don't straight away flip and embrace a change. You need to go through the second phase called the neutral zone. In the neutral zone, you're in between the old ways and the new ways, in between old relationships and new relationships, in between old skills and new skills. So this is where you renew yourself. Once you finish a business in the neutral zone, then and only then you move on to the new beginning, where you embrace a change and you get on with life, right? So change is a two-phase process. Something old stops, something new starts. Transition is a more challenging part, where it requires you and your team to go through endings, neutral zone, and new beginning. So in other words, change is situational and external. Something happens out there. Transition, on the other hand, is psychological, internal. Put it this way, how do you know if your change is completed? Versus how do you know if your change is successful, right? I know my change is completed when on 1st of June, we are no longer using Oracle. 1st of June, we are using SAP. How do you know if your change is successful? How come people are still not using SAP fully? How come they are still not using the full attributes, the full resources, right? How come they are still struggling? So we have completed a change, but essentially it's not that successful. So based on the 3 phases of transition, we have now the 3 parts of transition where we have this interesting tool. This is the map, if you wish, of the transition process, where you notice we begin with endings. Okay, where's my pointer, right? So the first phase of transition, ending phase, is what losses. Then I go through the second phase, the neutral zone, and then finally a new beginning. So for you and your team to go through transition, most of the time we start here in endings, which means I have to address my loss, I have to confront my loss, I have to let go before I move on. Then I move on to the neutral zone, where I'm in between the old ways and the new ways. And you notice in the neutral zone, if I manage it well, I move on to the new beginning. If I don't, I'll regress back to the past. So once I finish a business in the neutral zone, I move on nicely to the new beginning, right? And that's why I end my transition. Put it in other words, the x-axis represents time, the y-axis represents level of transition readiness, right? So there are some people who start at a very high level of transition readiness and they can move on quite nicely from endings, neutral zone to new beginning very fast. How come? If I've just joined your department 2 months ago, in the restructuring, no big deal. I've not sunk my roots, I can move on nicely. But if I've been with the department for the last 5 years, 10 years, I find that I start at a very low level. Over time, I can't let go. Over time, I can't let go. I'm stuck in the past, right? Likewise for processes. I'm very familiar with this process, right? I can do it blindfolded. Now with the new process, all my skills are gone. Everything I've acquired is gone. I have to learn new skills. I have to learn new processes, and I find it's very frustrating, right? So this is the core aspect of transitions. This is the core idea as you and your team go through transitions. In my case, I've gone through several transitions before. Some are easier, some are a bit more stressful. I recall a time when I was with this organization for 10 years. I love my job. I love my boss. I got a great team, right? After 10 years, I was very comfortable, but I found that I wasn't growing. So I got restless, but I love my job. No complaints, right? And then another organization approached me. They say, we are looking for one participant. We are looking for a vice president to jumpstart our Asia Pacific Training Center. Would you be interested? Sounds good to me. Great learning opportunities and so forth. Spoke to my wife, she says, go for it. I accepted the job. 3 weeks into my new role, I regretted my decision. Regret, how come? Well, I did factor in the process of transition because I was very comfortable in my old job. Now, in the new organization, all my relationships are gone. All my skills in the old ways are gone. All my connections, all my relationships, all gone. So it took me about 3 months to move from endings to the neutral zone, to organize successful seminars, to find out who is who in the organization. And it took me another 6 months before I move on to a new beginning, right? So that was a painful experience for me. So if I knew about transitions earlier on, I think I could have managed it better. All right. So this is a beautiful illustration about change and transition. Change is like the iceberg. 1/10 is floating above water, you can see it. Why must we change? Why must we have a new structure? Why must we have a new relationship? Why must we have a new process? So that we can gain more, so that we can improve productivity by 30%, we can cut costs by 20%. But what you don't see below the waterline, as a result of your change, someone or some groups of people will experience losses, loss of relationship, loss of power, loss of connections. And this is below the waterline. So in essence, what is transition all about? And this is where William Bridges came into the picture. Bridges says, look, it is transition and not change that people resist, right? You can change whatever you want, do it next year when I retire, don't do it now. So there is therefore a difference between change and transition. Change is something old stops, something new starts. When change is completed, it's a done deal. Transition, on the other hand, is more challenging, right? And most of the time, people don't resist change, they resist transition. So the question arises, where are people in transition? How do you know whether you're in endings, neutrals, or new beginning? So let's look into what is called the 3 phases. The ending phase usually is about emotions. So how do I know if we are in endings, neutrals, or new beginning? I look at emotions. I look at behaviors, right? People in the ending phase, you notice they are numb, they are very anxious, they are shocked, they're confused. And then as they go deeper, they get angry, they are fearful, and so forth. But you notice that in this phase, they are also into the neutral zone. where, okay, I've gotten over my index. Now I'm ready to renew myself. And this is where I'm in between old ways and new ways. If I manage my neutral zone well, I'll be hopeful. I accept the change. I'm patient, I'm curious, right? And then when I finish a business in the neutral zone, I become enthusiastic. I am more trusting. I'm excited. I'm relieved, right? So the three phases of transition essentially is about the relationship. Essentially is about behavior, right? So with that, you find that I can manage myself better. I can manage my team better if I know where people are, right? So the greater my loss, the greater my transition. In other words, people in the neutrals, people in the new beginning, they'll behave very differently from people in the endings, right? In the ending phase, I'm very frustrated. I'm very anxious. In the new beginning, I embrace the change. In the neutral zone, I'm between the old and the new, right? So this is one way to figure out where people are. So how to deal with losses, how to deal with the ending phase. This is a beautiful illustration. The picture of a girl trying to grasp the balloon, right? Once I had a balloon, now it's gone. It's gone forever. It's not coming back. Endings are like this. Once I had a certain structure, once I had a certain skill, once I had a certain relationship, now with the change, it's all gone, right? I have one manager who said, I spent 5 years of my life building my team. We are a high-performing team. But after restructuring, everything I built is all gone. And you want me to embrace the change? You gotta be kidding me, right? But this is very, very, what I call pointed. Once I had a balloon, now it's all gone. It's not coming back. How then do I manage this? So then we have to look into the classic Zen riddle: is a glass of water half empty or half full, right? On the other hand, I can only see my glass of water as half empty. That's always not enough. But on the other hand, hey, it is also half full. I can see some gains, right? So to move into neutral zone and new beginning, it's quite a big jump, right? So in order to do it, you need support system, you need support structures to guide people through the change. So dealing with losses, essentially you need to confront a loss, you need to accept the loss. Then you can move on. If you can't confront your loss, if you can't accept your loss, you're stuck in the ending phase, right? And this is the reality. To move on, I have to tell myself the old is gone, the new has come, right? I look at gains as opposed to losses. So this is one way which I can move into the neutral zone. Then once I can confront my loss, once I can accept my loss, I move to the neutral zone, then I move to the new beginnings. So essentially the main idea, the main strategies in the neutral zone is I have to embrace change as an opportunity. I see the loss, but I can also see the gains. I choose learning over frustration. I can learn new skills, I can learn new behaviors. I need to know how to learn, learning how to learn. When I need to learn a new skill, I must first and foremost accept my loss, and I must first and foremost remind myself I can't take everything at one time. So I start in small phases, right? So I have said goodbye to all my Oracle skills. I'm now willing to learn SAP, but I can't learn SAP within one day. So I need to pace myself. I need to go into bite sizes. And you can do this to yourself and your team. I need to practice. I need to count options. I need to experiment, try, right? Let me try out new ways. If I fail, not to worry, I try again. I ask for help. I find support. Who can help me? Is it my team? Is it my bosses? Is it HR, right? Then I am reminded I need to look into the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, which I'll talk in a bit. And when I'm successful, I can celebrate small victories. Go for the low-hanging fruits, right? So this is how I keep myself going from neutral zone to new beginning. This is a wonderful illustration. It doesn't matter how many resources you have, if you don't know how to use them, you'll never be enough, right? So learning how to learn, asking for help is always very useful. So I'll end off with a very quick treatment regarding personal mindsets, right? So right now, we established the difference between change and transition. Change is something old stops and something new starts. Transition is an internal reorientation that happens to us as you adapt to change. It begins with an endings, it goes to neutral zone before you go to a new beginning, right? Then we talk about how to manage my endings. I need to accept my loss, I need to confront my loss. Then I need to renew myself in the neutral zone before I embrace a new beginning. Ultimately, it comes to myself. What can I do to make sure I embrace a change? And we talk about mindsets. Your mindset is your belief system, right? So my belief system will determine what I think, how I act, and the results. Here's a beautiful illustration. Look at this bird. I can't escape. I have no choice. I'm stuck, right? Yeah, if you look into this small gap, but you look at a big gap there, just by looking from another perspective, you have freedom. So most of the time we are locked into this structure. There's no hope, right? Try to see things from another point of view. So we look into mindsets. It is essentially your belief system, and this is core. And one of the interesting research on mindsets is by Dr. Carol Dweck from Stanford University, who spent 20 years, and she came up with this interesting book called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. Essentially, Dweck mentioned, look, when you look into mindsets, you need to support effort, perseverance, and strategy, not intelligence. Reward people for effort rather than for intelligence, right? In other words, give it a try. If you fail, let's try another option. If you fail, let's try another option. Rather than say, I fail, I don't want, I give up, right? So in essence, there are people with a fixed mindset, and they believe that traits are just given. In other words, if I'm good, I'm good. I don't need to practice, right? That's a very narrow point of view. Whereas we suggest that as enlightened leaders, as enlightened people, go for the growth mindset. See and try what works and try again. So in essence, the fixed mindset and growth mindset goes something like this, right? That the fixed mindset, I don't want to go for challenging assignments. It's too difficult. I can't do it, I give up. I see effort as fruitless. I ignore criticism, and I'm threatened by other success, right? On the other hand, I say, okay, look, I'm open, I'm eager to embrace the change, which means I see change as a challenge, which means I'm willing to try new things, which means if I fail, it's not that I'm a failure, it simply means I didn't get it, and there could be another way, right? So I persist in the light of obstacles. I see effort as necessary, right? I put in my time. I learn from criticisms, I learn from other people, and I'm very inspired by your success. So the idea is this: whenever I encounter a change, right? A new process, a new structure, a new boss, especially a new process, I can say it's too difficult, I don't want to do it. But I say, no, wait a minute. Let's see how I can work this out, right? Step one, I learn to hear what my mind is telling me. I learn to hear your fixed mindset voice. So in the new change, in the new process, my immediate reaction is it's too difficult. You can't do it. You're too old, right? Then you say, okay, wait a minute. Others have done it, right? I have a choice. I can give it a try. Okay. Then step three, talk back to the growth mindset. The fixed mindset will tell you, it's too difficult. You waste your time, right? Give up. The fixed mindset says, not to worry. If I fail, let me try another way. The growth mindset says, okay, I can't get it. Who else can help me, right? So I'm willing to ask for help. I'm willing to ask for assistance. And then finally, step four, take the growth mindset in action. Let's give it a try. right? Let's see who can help me. Let's see what I can make the best out of it. So in other words, all of us have fixed mindsets and growth mindsets, right? It's not that we always want a growth mindset, but I have to remind myself, if I encounter a setback, it's not that I'm a failure. Maybe I didn't get it, which means therefore, who can help me in this process? Where can I find assistance, right? So I think that's a more liberal, that's a more helpful way to handle new changes. So let's try to do this, guys. Can you sign your signature? Find a piece of paper, please sign your signature. Okay, once you have done that, can you please sign your signature a second time using your other hand? So in other words, if you're right-handed, please sign your signature using your left hand. Give it a try. Okay. Now, chances are it's easy for you. You look at the, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, a lot of interesting, what I call things here, right? It's easy for us to sign with your natural hand. So for me, I'm right-handed, so I can sign my name quite easily. Can I sign my name using my left hand? Yes, I can. But if I look at my signature, it's horrible, right? If I sign with my left hand on my bank check, the check will bounce, right? So this is a challenge. Signing with the other hand, it's not that you cannot do it, you can, right? But it's very difficult. It requires a lot of effort on your part. You must really focus and concentrate. And it's very frustrating for some people, right? So this is a challenge where change is concerned. It's not that you cannot do it, you can, but it requires more effort. You are not sure, you feel lost, right? But if you persevere, if you persist, you find that eventually you get it. The challenge for all of us is that we are very impatient people. We want to get it done by tomorrow. It's not going to happen. That is a process you need to keep in mind, right? So on that note, we have finished the main ideas very quickly about change and transition. What is change? Something old stops, something new starts. What is transition? It triggers the ending in people, then it goes to the neutral zone, then it goes to a new beginning, right? How do you know where people are in transition? How do you know where you're in transition? You look for behaviors. You look for emotions. People in the ending phase will behave differently from people in the new beginning, right? Then you look at losses that people will face. The greater the loss, the greater the transition, the greater the resistance. Then we talk about the strategies on endings, neutrals, and new beginning. And then we ended off with the mindset thing, right? All of us have a choice. You can choose and persevere and experience success, or you can choose to give up. So the choice is yours. So on that note, we're almost done for the session. Let me just throw the floor open to any questions or any comments that you may have regarding the transition, regarding the change that we have spoken thus far. So the floor is yours. Anyone? You can just unmute and shout out.
Yeah,
Or if you
okay.
wish, you can
Okay,
just enter chat mode.
there's a question in the chat. It asks, is there a difference between voluntary change and involuntary change in terms of the set of emotions involved in the transition phase, which is ending, neutral, and beginning?
Well, I think if it's voluntary change, it's easier because essentially it's your choice. You choose it, right? If it's involuntary change, it's a bit of a challenge. Essentially, you got no choice. You just got to do it, right? Which means, therefore, you have to settle within yourself, how do I best manage this change where I got no choice, right? So between the two, it's always an easier part if you choose to effect the change yourself versus that you don't want to do it. Not that you can't, but it's going to be quite a challenge, right? So thank you for that. Other comments, questions?
Please feel free to unmute yourself and
Yeah,
ask
you
the
can just
question
unmute
at
and
this
shout out,
stage if you
guys.
wish to,
Right.
if it's easier.
So any thoughts about the process of transitions that comes to mind? Are you interested about the other, what I call interpretations or whatever it is? Just unmute and shout out.
Sir, I have a question.
Okay.
With this change and transition and transformation, what usually is the time frame? Like, how long does it take? For those that, for someone who's doing it voluntarily, that person might have a time frame. But for those who are not doing it voluntarily, in your experience and exposure, how long does it usually take?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for that, right? I hate to use the term, but you ask every consultant, the answer is always it depends, right? But having said that, it depends on the nature of the change itself. If it is a merger, it'll be quite challenging. If it is a downsizing, it'll be quite challenging, right? So I reckon that what you need to do is just observe the behavior of people on the average as a whole. Where are the majority of people, right? Are they in end-based noodles or near-based? So you observe and you keep an eye out for what am I seeing in terms of behaviors? What am I hearing people say about the change, right? How are they treating it? So this will give an idea whether the majority of them are end-based noodles or near-beginning, right? But having said that, I find that most consultants will usually say, I reckon maybe about on the average 6 months or so, people would have moved on to majority in the neutral zone, right? So 6 months seems to be a good ballpark figure. But again, depending on the nature of a change, it can take longer. So what we can do, therefore, as leaders, is to just keep an eye out, listen to what people are saying, observe their behaviors, and this is to give you a better idea as to where they are and how you can assist them in terms of the strategies.
Thank you.
Hopefully that helps, Zenda. Yeah.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Okay, another question has come in. It says, from your point of view, Dr. Lim, does emotional aspect of one person matter in transition process?
Okay. Well, it depends. Just kidding. How you treat people as a leader matters, right? If you find that majority of your team, they are already with the change, that's good for you. There could be one person who, for whatever reason, may have some issues, right? And I think it is worth your time to just have a conversation with the person to understand what are some issues this guy is going through, what are some of the challenges he or she face, right? And to see how best you can support the person, best as you can, right? So in other words, I'll see how I can support you. In other words, I'll see what I can do. Ultimately, it's your call. Because at the end of the day, we are going here. We are going this way, right? If you choose to go this way, help me understand why. Again, we are going here, guys. Remember, you are going this way. You choose to go this way. I'll give you my support best as I can to help you go this way. But you still persist on going this way, then ultimately, we have to part ways. Thank you for your services. We got a part, you got a part. But before that, let me see what I can do as a leader to help you understand this is where we are going, right?
We have another question. How can you embrace challenges if someone does not believe in herself?
That's a tough one. Again, it comes down to help you understand why you don't believe in yourself, right? Or is it you don't believe in a change, right? So have a conversation to try to understand where the person is coming from. Essentially, I suspect that there's a lot of resistance because a person will be going through losses, right? In a restructuring, I'll lose relationships. I'll lose my connection. I lose my influence. I lose my power base, right? I won't tell you that, I'll tell you it's a stupid change, a lousy change because it won't work or whatever it is. So again, I need to understand what are your issues that you need to grapple with, what are the challenges that you face, and let me see as a leader how I can support you, right? So again, it comes down to put a very broad term, the communication process that you need to what you call engage in. Yeah.
Another question is there such a thing as collective change, or is collective change possible?
I'm not too sure what comes to mind if you think of collective change. I think it that in a case of restructuring in an organization, it involves the whole organization. So that's a collective change, right? Which means, therefore, we go through the same process again, that the change has to be completed by a certain time, but the success of the change is something else, right? So in terms of a collective change, then ideally all of us will embrace the change nicely and move on with life, but it's not going to work. So therefore, again, as a leader, I need to spend some time, I need to spend energy to understand the stakeholders better, to see how I can support them. Yeah. Well, guys, I'm looking at the time. It already flies, right? If you wish, I can take one or two more questions before you wrap up and hand the floor back to Florence.
We do have one more question.
Okay.
If the others don't mind staying. It asks, what are the notable observations you have on transition behavior with the effects of the pandemic?
A lot of time, people struggle with transitions in the context of the COVID pandemic, simply because all my routines, all my comfort zones are busted, right? That for some of us, holy smokes, now I have to attend Zoom meetings from morning to evening. That will mess up my routines. I have to learn new skills. I have to learn new technology. That will mess up my routines, right? So the pandemic is a classic case where change just hit us. I wish it did not happen, but the reality is that it is happening. So what can I do, right? I can moan and groan, whine and pine, which is not very helpful. But it's okay to get angry, but then I need to just accept it and try to make the best out of it with an open mindset, with the understanding that that is a learning process, and let's see how best I can just embrace it and get on with life. Okay, Florence, so that's it, man. So let me thank everyone for your patience, right? I again have to acknowledge that this is a very short, compressed time. Ideally, we should have 2 days, right? Which is normally the case. But it's like watching this YouTube Hollywood trailers, you know, a very short 2-minute thing, whereas a whole movie is like 2 hours, right? But hopefully this will get you started to think about the human side of change, which is different from the actual change itself, right? So now, as a leader, you are more confident, you have the process, you have the tools to manage all the emotional, the psychological issues with better confidence. So with that, I wish you every success and all the best as you go about your daily routines and you go about your responsibilities. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much, Peng Sun, for the engaging session and for sharing such useful and practical tips on how we can manage change in our lives. And I believe all our participants would have benefited from it as well. And to all our participants, I want to thank you for your active participation and for your sharing as well. We really appreciate it. But before we end for the day, we just want to share with you some other events that are coming up in the next few months for those who are interested and might be keen to join us in some of these events. So in the months of May to July, we have a few programs, and these are special programs that are special discounted programs as a part of a learning festival. And because there are limited seats, we would prefer that those who are interested in the programs to email to us so that we can attend to it on a case-by-case basis. So for those who are interested, please write in to us at solution@quintegral.com. So as you can see, these are the various programs that we have for the next 3 months, from leading virtual meetings to critical thinking, leading virtual teams, managing chaos, on influencing, and about the voice of leadership and building resilience. So do write into us if you are keen on this. We also want to share with you on the next free webinar that is coming up, and that will be in June. Ellie, can you scroll now, please? Thank you. So the next free webinar that we're having is similar as well, and is talking about change management strategies for team leaders. And this is happening on 14th June 2021. The registration will be opening soon. So please do check out on our website and look out for it. And we really value your feedback. So we hope that you can give us your evaluation of today's session. So if you can go to the QR code shown in the next slide, Ellie, please. Can you please scan this QR code and do give us a feedback so that we know what you think of today's session, how we can improve in the future. So we have come to today's to the end of today's session. Once again, we really thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all your participation, and we certainly hope to see you again soon in our future events, perhaps one of these next free seminar, otherwise one of the discounted programs for the next 3 months. So we thank you very much, and we hope that you have a good evening. Thank you so much.